I always believed that my family was flawless, a radiant picture of happiness that sparkled under the warm Ohio sun. The Brooks family was the kind of family that made neighbors envious, where smiles were frequent and laughter was abundant. As the eldest daughter, I had always taken on the responsibility of keeping us close-knit, a duty I clung to even after my father passed away. I still remember the day he left us, the soft rain gently pattering on the windows, reflecting my tears. It had felt like our family lost a puzzle piece that day, and ever since I had been scrambling to fill the void. But everything shifted gradually, a silent storm brewing beneath the shiny surface of our lives. I vividly recall the moment I started realizing things were askew, the day I received a bill I couldn't afford. I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by sunlight spilling through the windows, illuminating stacks of paper, bills, and reminders of dues that needed to be paid. The scent of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air, a sharp contrast to the bitter taste of anxiety creeping into my throat. "Amelia, honey, are you coming to the dining room? Your mother has the itinerary for our next vacation," my sibling called out, a hint of excitement in their voice that made my heart churn. It was another one of Mom's extravagant trips, this time to a lavish resort in the Caribbean. My sibling's voice was so light, so carefree, as if their world hadn't changed, while mine felt heavy with burdens I couldn't share. "Yeah, I will be right there," I replied, forcing a smile even though the joy felt hollow inside me. I stood up, smoothing down my crumpled shirt, the fabric feeling rough against my skin. The walking felt like traversing a tightrope, balancing between my mounting worries and the need to keep up appearances. As I entered the dining room, I was greeted by vibrant images of palm trees swaying in the breeze, white sandy beaches, and crystal clear waters. My mother waved a brightly colored brochure of the resort, her eyes sparkling. "Look, isn't it beautiful? I can't wait to take you both. We'll have the best time soaking up the sun. You both deserve a break after everything." "Wow, Mom, it looks incredible. I can already taste the pina coladas." My sibling grinned, eyes glimmering with excitement. Their enthusiasm felt like daggers to my heart. A break? I was barely able to carve out the money for groceries, let alone for a tropical getaway. I stood there, caught between a feigned smile and the weight of reality. "That place looks amazing, but Mom, how are we even going to afford it?" My voice felt smaller than usual. "Isn't that a bit extravagant, especially with my bills piling up?" "Oh, Amelia, don't be so serious. Money is just a number, and I've been saving for this." My mother waved her hand dismissively, her laughter like chimes in the wind, but it set teeth on edge. "We simply must enjoy life, don't worry about the details, just think about the fun we'll have together." "Fun," I echoed, bitterness creeping into my words. "What about my rent this month? What about my student loans, or that past due bill I just opened?" My mother tilted her head slightly, her face softening, but only for a heartbeat. "Trust me, Amelia, the world will sort itself out. Just focus on what matters us. Family before money, honey." She smiled, but I struggled to return it, feeling that familiar pit of despair growing in my stomach. "You say that now, but that's not how life works," I mumbled, nearly under my breath. I seethed at how my mother seemed to have forgot how to worry, turning her eyes from responsibilities and hardships while basking in what I could only describe as delightful ignorance. "Amelia Brooks, you need to loosen up. Life is too short," my sibling interjected, the innocent happiness provoking an unspeakable frustration. "Just think of the gorgeous tan I'll get, and we can explore some amazing places. You always focus on work and responsibilities. Just let go a little." They used to look up to me, those once admiring eyes were now born from a sense of entitlement. It struck a nerve with me, a cold wave of anger flashing through my veins. Everything was so simple for them, so easy to grasp, while my world felt like it was collapsing into chaos. "Are we going to pretend there isn't any stress involved?" I snapped, folding my arms tightly across my chest. I was tense, unable to shake the frustration that was beginning to boil. "What happens when we come back and bills are still unpaid, or if I can't afford to go?" My mother's joyful facade faltered momentarily. "Amelia, please, we can't have you ruining this for us." She sighed, rearranging the brochure as if it were a shield. "Just stop worrying, you know you're always so uptight, everything will be fine." I felt the heat of shame creep up my spine. How could they not see? Their privilege, so tightly knit into the comforts of our lives, blinded them. "Fine," I echoed, almost a whisper, my heart racing beneath the weight of it all. "Well, I don't think you realize how precarious things really are for some of us. The $3,000 travel package won't fix just how broken we are underneath." Silence hung in the air, heavy, suffocating. My mother's eyes darted away, and my sibling frowned, words stolen by the gravity of my harsh truth. "Amelia, you should have more faith in us." The words were a jarring retreat, almost like a sincere plea, but they felt disingenuous. My heart sank as I felt like I was being pushed out of my own family narrative, trapped in their delusions. "Do you really think we would let you fall apart?" What was falling apart, the more I fought to hold us together, the more I felt like I was unraveling. "I'm not the one who needs to be checked. I should be able to count on you both." Mom scoffed, shaking her head slightly. "Sweetie, declarations like yours just create unnecessary drama. Can't we focus on the trip, on being happy?" "Happy?" I exclaimed in exasperation. "You call living a lie happy?" This unwavering commitment to ignorance feels like a betrayal. "Amelia," my sibling's voice cut through my thoughts, sharp, "you need to stop. Why are you determined to rain on our parade? We were just trying to enjoy ourselves." I turned away, the moment feeling suffocating, my stomach churned with anguish. This was not happiness, it felt like a trap. I stepped back into the kitchen, drowning in the memories of my father's laughter, the warmth of our family unity that now felt impossibly distant. I leaned against the counter, gripping the edges until my knuckles turned white. There were so many unspoken words hovering between us, but no one seemed willing to face the ugly truths crawling beneath our pretense. Amelia, dinner is almost ready, my mother called out, putting a sharp end to my turmoil, but inside I felt a terrifying sense of solitude. I was trapped in a world of glossy images and misplaced values while I struggled to keep our real home, intact. The smell of dinner wafted through the air, but I felt sick to my stomach, my body buzzing with a mix of anger, confusion, and despair. Then it hit me, this growing sense of injustice swirling like a storm inside my chest. Revenge would be futile. They wouldn't even comprehend the depths of what was at stake. Instead, I would channel my pain into clarity. They needed to see the truths I clutched tightly in my hands, the ones veiled by the facade. Only then could I free myself from their gilded prison. In the midst of all this chaos, I realized an undeniable truth. Beneath the family's perfect facade lay a darkness I could no longer ignore, and the tempest brewing beneath would soon make the surface crack. I felt a twist of something fierce, a determination to reveal what lay hidden and to reclaim my place in the narrative they had woven so tightly around themselves. I sat at a worn wooden desk in the cluttered attic, the faint dust particles swirling around me as I flicked through the faded envelopes and old receipts my parents had so carelessly tucked away. The air was thick with the musty scent of forgotten memories, barely illuminated by a single flickering bulb hanging precariously from the ceiling. It felt like stepping back in time to an era that held far too many secrets. My fingers froze on the edge of a thick file marked important, the label barely legible beneath layers of dust. I took a deep breath, filled with anticipation and trepidation, and opened it hesitantly. That was when I stumbled upon it. A single piece of paper lodged among a jumble of old tax returns and insurance documents caught my eye. My heart skittered in my chest as I pulled it out. It felt almost like pulling a thorn from a rose. My eyes widened at the sight of what I was reading. My fingers trembled as I traced the letters and numbers on the account statement, a hidden bank account under my mother's name. And the kicker, it held over $300,000. Every figure was etched into my mind like a brand. For a brief moment, the world around me dissolved into a haze, the attic fading and the musty smell evaporating. All I could focus on was that number $300,000 and the chaos of emotions that crashed over me. The shock morphed into disbelief and soon into a burning rage that coursed through my veins. Memories engulfed me like a film reel playing in rapid succession before my eyes. I recalled all those evenings spent poring over bills, the stress etched on my mother's face as she claimed we were barely making ends meet, her weary sighs as she recounted the struggles of affording groceries, the time I had skipped meals just to make sure my younger sibling had enough to eat. I could practically hear her voice in the background, insisting that I had to work extra shifts to keep us afloat, that every dollar I made mattered. Amelia, are you listening? I could almost hear her nagging, her voice chastising yet laced with an undertone of love and worry. I had felt like a martyr, sacrificing my own needs, all for the illusion of our family's unity, of being together in hard times. And now here I was, finding out that everything she had told me was a lie. How could she do this to us? I whispered to myself, my breath shaky. It tore me apart, this realization that while I bore the burden alone, my mother had a hidden fortune. It felt like betrayal laced in the sweetness of fruit. I thought of the times I watched my sibling receive cash for birthdays, gifts without a hint of the lean years I had endured. While I toiled and carried the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, they had no idea about the sacrifices I made. A wave of anger washed over me, a tidal wave of disbelief. Who knew what other secrets were buried in this attic? She must have known, I muttered, clenching my fists. My mind raced in circles, each thought punctuated by the pounding of my heart. How many times had I seen her shop the clearance aisles while she had a small fortune tucked away? I felt like a fool, made to believe we were in dire financial straits. She must have been watching me, laughing behind that sweet motherly facade. The thought turned my stomach. I slammed the file shut, the sound echoing in the stillness of the attic like a gunshot. The sudden noise startled me, and I glanced around, half expecting someone to leap out from the shadows, but I was alone. I threw the file aside, my heart racing even faster. I could feel the blood pounding in my temples, my thoughts scattered yet persistently circling the same point: betrayal. Why didn't I see this? I asked aloud, more to myself than anything. Why didn't I suspect? I felt as if I could see my mother standing in front of me, the placid smile she always wore plastered across her face, blind to my pain. I pictured her curled up on the couch watching television, oblivious to the sheer weight of responsibility I carried. I took a moment to breathe, because at that point I was fighting back tears that threatened to spill over. There was a twinge of vulnerability creeping in, one I hated. I didn't want to be weak, especially now. I needed to be strong, to confront her about this insanity, this deception that had unfolded like a dark shadow in our lives. As I sat there enveloped by the attic's gloom, determination surged through me, igniting a fire I had forgotten I possessed. This isn't over, I muttered, punctuating my words with a fierce glare at the crumpled papers scattered all around me. I will find out everything. And that decision snapped something inside me, that hidden rage turned into a battle cry. I would no longer be the silent, sacrifice-bearing child. My family had shattered the trust between us, and I felt the weight of that injustice settle heavily on my shoulders. I looked at the stack of documents, the envelope that had revealed everything, and saw it for what it was, an anchor, a reminder of my power. My phone buzzed, jolting me from my spiraling thoughts. I reached for it, the dull buzz a distraction, and found a message from my sister. Can you pick up some milk on your way home? We're out. It was so trivial, so normal, and yet a fire ignited deep within me once more. I resisted the urge to respond with something snarky, instead taking a breath. Sure, I replied, but it felt hollow. Thanks, you're the best, she texted back, and I could almost hear her sing-song voice echo in my mind. The anger burned hotter. I imagined confronting my sister, telling her the truth, breaking the news that she had been protected from, but it felt selfish. Did she deserve to know? Or should I confront our mother first? With a huff of frustration, I stood, purpose flooding my veins, and began to gather the clutter around me. If my mother had been hiding something this big, what else was she capable of? I wanted answers, explanations that felt reasonable, not the weaving of fairy tales that had kept our family's balance. I climbed down the creaky stairs of the attic, this time with purpose, the tension of the moment dissolving into determination. The world outside felt vibrant and alive, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within me. The attic door clicked shut with a sense of finality behind me, almost like sealing away the lives of my old self. As I walked into the kitchen, the smell of spices wafted through the air, a vivid contrast to the stale remnants of the attic. I found my mother humming to herself, a pot bubbling on the stove. She looked up, her smile wide and genuine, the kind of smile that once melted my heart, but today it felt like a mask. Hey honey, you're home early. How was the attic? She asked, a hint of bright curiosity dancing in her eyes. It was fine. My voice barely above a whisper. For a second, I almost crumbled under her gaze, but I steadied myself. I found something, I stammered, the words clinging to my throat. Something. She asked, clearly curious, those perfectly groomed brows raising slightly. Yeah, something important. It felt like stepping onto a high wire, shaky beneath me. My heart raced as I met her gaze. A bank account, yours, over $300,000. For a brief moment, the room fell silent, the very air around us thickening with an impending clash. She blinked, her expression shifting from confusion to careful neutrality. What do you mean? Don't play dumb. Anger surged inside me again, snapping like a freshly taut rubber band. I found it and I want to know why. Why did you never tell us? Why did you let me believe we were broke? I sacrificed so much, worked my fingers to the bone, and yet you kept this hidden. Oh, honey, it's not what you think, she said, her voice steady but softening slightly at the edges. It's exactly what I think. I deserve to know why. Why you let me bear that burden all on my own, making me feel like I was the only one keeping our family afloat. Amelia, she started, her tone still laced with a false sense of calm, I understand how you feel. No, you do, don't pretend like you understand. I shot back, unable to contain the tremor of rage threading through my voice. I wanted to shake her, to make her understand how her lies had twisted everything between us. I did what I thought was best for the family, she replied, her composure faltering for the first time. Best, you didn't think at all. This explains so much, I hissed. How could you let me struggle while you hoarded money? Her eyes glazed over, and I could see the gears in her mind working, trying to form her response. I wanted to protect you. I didn't want you to worry. Protect me? I scoffed, feeling incredulous. No, this was protecting yourself, and you know it. Sinking me into guilt while you did whatever you wanted. It wasn't fair, not to me or to. I cut myself off, fuming, and just like that, the tension weighed heavy in the kitchen. My thoughts flitted to every lean Christmas we had, every worn pair of shoes I had made last a little longer, each moment betrayed like cuts to my heart. She took a deep breath as if summoning her courage. Amelia, I didn't want to keep this from you, then why did you? I yelled. Because you were embarrassed. Because you couldn't admit to your family that you were doing just fine without our struggles. Because I was scared, she shouted back, her voice finally breaking like glass. I never wanted you to feel that pressure. I wanted you to be a kid, to enjoy your life. You and your sibling were supposed to be happy, I spat. How could I be happy knowing I was the only one caring? My mother stood there, tears brimming in her eyes, vulnerable in a way I had never seen before. I watched as the weight of her deception pressed down on her like a suffocating blanket. The very sight of it twisted my stomach. The rage I felt mixed with something more profound, disappointment. I trusted you, I whispered, the fight leaking from my voice, leaving only a quivering pang. I never wanted you to, she began but faltered. The kitchen felt far too quiet, as if the universe was holding its breath, awaiting the outcome of a fragile moment. In the heat between us, something shattered, and I realized that the mother I had trusted with my heart was just as flawed, just as helpless as I was. Do you realize what you have done? I asked again, my voice trembling, and yet a fierce clarity emerged from that pain, just like a bright light breaking through the dark. It echoed through me as I spoke. This isn't over, I need to find out more. I turned from her, a whirlwind of emotion, and headed for the exit, knowing that I had only scratched the surface of the deception that spun our lives together. My heart beat steadily, the thrill of revelation coursing through me, the thrill of revenge waiting on the horizon. In my life, I had always worn my heart on my sleeve, but now all that warmth had turned to ice. I knew this wasn't just about a secret bank account anymore. No, it was about finding the truth, unraveling the lies, and giving voice to the sacrifices I had made. I would dig deeper, unearth everything she had hidden, and maybe, just maybe, I could reclaim what I had lost. I stood in the driveway, the late afternoon sun hanging heavily in the sky, casting warm golden rays on everything it touched. My heart raced, a wild drumbeat echoing in my ears that drowned out the chirping birds and gentle rustle of autumn leaves. There it was, my mother's brand new luxury car, the kind that made heads turn, a glossy black beast reflecting the sunlight with an audacity that both dazzled and repulsed me. I could see her sitting inside, her face aglow with pride and a satisfied smirk that reminded me of the very last thing I wanted to think about, my unending struggles and failures. Dropping my keys onto the worn welcome mat of my front porch, I'd been standing there, merely a spectator in my own life, watching her bask in the thrill of her latest triumph as if it were a trophy she had won after a lengthy battle. I remembered the letter I had received just hours earlier, overdue bills that I could not afford to pay. It seemed fitting, in a cruel twist of fate, that I should get that notice the same day she would parade her latest purchase right in front of me. Can you believe it? She called out almost too jubilantly. Her voice rang through the still air as she stepped out of the car, her heels clicking against the asphalt, and it sounded like shards of glass cutting through my frustration. I found the perfect deal, not all of us have to worry about money. She laughed, rich and full, as she tossed her hair back, the sun striking it just right so it shimmered as if it had its own halo. I just missed a wedding because I couldn't afford to go. I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper, even as a tempest roared inside me, pushing against my ribs like a wild animal trying to escape its cage. Despite my misery, I was shocked by the bitterness that seeped into my own thoughts. How could she stand there flaunting her new wealth when I was grappling with the limitations of our reality? Amelia, you worry too much. She leaned casually against her car, her arms crossed, confident and unbothered. That was a waste of a Saturday anyway. You should be happy for me, I've worked so hard. You have no idea the hoops I had to jump through to get this. I say nothing, what could I say? My attempts to steer our lives in something resembling stability felt futile, like trying to catch rain with a sieve. My moments of sacrifice, working two jobs even when it meant missing out on my own friends and life milestones, seemed laughable compared to her whirlwind lifestyle. I looked down at my hands, not at the nails until they nearly bled, the dull ache of anger simmering inside me, begging for attention. You have to celebrate life, Amelia. It is meant to be lived. I wanted a car to make my commute easier, and here it is. Her laughter boomed through the air, vibrant and free, the sun catching her smile in a way that made it feel like a commercial, the kind I always skipped during my late-night binge-watching sessions. Is that what you think I'm doing? Worrying too much? I met her gaze, my breath hitching for half a second, recoiling at the smugness reflected back at me. Maybe try seeing the world from my perspective for just a moment. My voice sharpened, splaying out in all directions like a splintering branch. Not everyone can skip out on responsibilities and play the game of life like it's a fairy tale. She tilted her head, confusion washing over her face, undoubtedly trying to fathom why I wasn't sharing in her joy. Oh, come on, you act so serious all the time. Sometimes you just have to let loose. Let loose? Had she really just said that? Rage bubbled up inside me like boiling water on the verge of spilling over. That word felt like a noose tightening around all the effort I had put into keeping our family afloat. You think that's what I need to let loose? Do you even know how it feels to carry burdens every single day? Burdens? You make it sound so dramatic, she replied, her eyes narrowing slightly, a look of disbelief flashing across her face. Life was meant for enjoying, not for burying yourself under negative thoughts. You might be surprised by how freeing it can be. Freeing, I echoed bitterly, the taste of the word sour and sharp on my tongue. Is that what you think? Is that your version of free? While I'm drowning in bills and responsibilities, you're here pretending like they don't exist. You do realize money doesn't grow on trees. Her smile faltered for just a moment, the sunlight losing its warmth in the chill of my accusation. There it was, the flicker of doubt, a flicker I savored and drank in like cool water after a long drought, but it was quickly snuffed out, her defiance coming back full force. Oh please, Amelia, I didn't just get this car because I wanted to flaunt it. I earned it. I worked hard. Not everyone has to struggle like you do. Her words turned my insides cold. The betrayal cut deeper than I anticipated. It was not just a slap in the face. It was the realization that my lifelong aspirations and attempts to secure our future had rendered me invisible in her world. Everything I sacrificed had been for naught. You talk about hard work, but what do you really know about it? Do you even see me? My voice cracked. The walls I had built meticulously began to crumble. I see you, she snapped back, irritation creeping into her stance now, her arms dropping to her sides. But you're so caught up in your problems, you never take the time to appreciate what you do have. You could have a car too if you just put in the effort. Car? I sneered, anger rising like a wave, crashing over everything I tried to hold on to. You think it's that simple, that if I just worked harder or made different choices? Do you even remember the late nights I pulled just to keep this family from falling apart? The sky began to dim as if it sensed the battle unfolding below. Dark clouds danced on the horizon, rolling in like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. I could feel the air thickening around us, charging with tension, electric and alive, but my mother continued to stand there, unyielding against my emotional tempest. Not a mind reader, Amelia, you have to tell me these things. She threw her hands up in exasperation, fury slipping through her facade. What do you want me to do, sacrifice my happiness because yours isn't perfect? It's not about perfection. I shouted, feeling the heat rise in my chest. I took a deep breath, the tightness clawing up my throat. It's about acknowledging that we are not equals. You live in a different universe than I do. While I am here drowning, you are splashing around in your golden fountain. I didn't mean to hurt you, she hesitated, and for just a moment I thought I saw something break in her, a crack in her shiny exterior that revealed a flicker of vulnerability. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by the defensive bravado I had known throughout my life. But you need to decide to be happy, Amelia. Nothing will change until you do. I let that sink in, her words reverberating in my mind like the tolling of a bell, an echo of insensitivity ringing far too deeply. Everything she said churned within me until that internal rage twisted and coiled like a poisonous serpent ready to strike. Happy? I huffed, glaring at her. The light behind my eyes flickered dangerously. I am tired of trying to be happy when I'm surrounded by reminders of what I will never have. As I turned abruptly to leave, a guttural sound escaped her, the irritation of having her shining moment denigrated by my sorrow. You will never be happy if you keep pushing me away, she called out after me, her voice sharp. We both remained entrenched in our stubborn stances, unable to cross that ever-widening chasm created by our own choices. I slammed the door to my home, the sound ricocheting off the walls, a reflection of the anguish boiled down inside me. I had devoted years to keeping everything intact while she reveled in her material conquests. I felt stripped of my dignity, exposed and raw while she remained oblivious to the damage she inflicted. In that moment, I realized the depths of my betrayal ripped through me too. Something must change. If she wanted a game, then this was where it would begin. I leaned against the door, my heart racing, a new sense of purpose igniting something deep within my chest. I would no longer be a pawn in her grand scheme. If she thought I was playing by the rules, she was dead wrong. I would reclaim my own narrative and write revenge like an artist painting a masterpiece fueled by anger. I devised a careful plan. I sat on my bed one evening, the dim light of my lamp casting stretched shadows against the walls of my childhood room. The faint smell of the lavender air freshener my mother used clung to the air, a stark contrast to the tumult brewing inside of me. I watched the dust motes swirling in the yellow light, mirroring the chaotic thoughts in my mind. I was here in this place that once felt safe, yet it now felt like a cage built with the lies my mother spun so effortlessly. I could feel the pulse of my heart racing as I imagined her tone, cheerful and carefree, when she dismissed the idea of working for the greater good. There was a palpable disconnect between her sunny disposition and the shadowy business dealings I had uncovered. Look at your mother, I recalled the way my friends had said it, their envy for my normal family structure evident, yet they had no idea what lay beneath the glossy surface. I need to document everything accurately, I reminded myself as I took out my notebook, finding a clean page in the midst of hastily scribbled thoughts and dreams. Clear evidence of her illicit activities needed to be laid out like pieces of a puzzle, crisp and undeniable. I scribbled down each transaction I had monitored over the months, poring over bank statements late at night, matching those extravagant purchases, the designer handbags, the secret vacations, and the lavish dinner parties, with the paltry income she reported to authorities. A knot tightened in my stomach, but I pushed through the discomfort. I told myself I had to. This was the only way to make her acknowledge the damage she had done. Amelia, you always overthink, her voice echoed in my mind, dismissing what I felt as mere angst instead of rightful hurt. I shook my head, forcing her voice out, and continued to write. I was ready to turn the tables. The IRS would become her personal lightning rod, and I would stand back and relish the storm I summoned. Once I felt like I had a substantial case, I typed up my anonymous tip. The words flowed like molten lava. Dear IRS, I wish to bring to your attention the example of unreported income and possible tax evasion. Attached are details of an individual leading a lavish lifestyle inconsistent with their reported earnings. You may wish to investigate Amelia Brooks regarding this matter. I typed her name as if it was venom, each keystroke a hammer striking down the eager nails that fastened her into a facade. I attached snippets of evidence, just enough for the auditors to dig deeper, to investigate the lavishness that contrasted so sharply with the surface of her life. My heart raced again, this time with adrenaline. It was done. I had sent the email. Every passing day felt like an eternity as I waited anxiously for evidence that my gamble had worked. I checked my phone obsessively, as if merely anticipating a notification could summon the coming chaos. Finally, one chilly evening, shadowed clouds rolled in thick and foreboding. I flipped on the television, trying to distract myself, but focusing was nearly impossible. The wind howled outside, making rhythmic thuds against the windows, echoing the chaos brewing inside. Suddenly, the door slammed open, and there she stood in the hallway, glimmering as she waltzed in, wearing her favorite designer dress, the fabric hugging her form in all the right places. Scent of polished cedar mixed with a hint of her expensive perfume, and beneath that clarity I sensed something else, a foreboding tension laced in her unusual air. Hey, sweetheart, she called, spinning around with that confident smile of hers, one I had long loathed. How was your day? I glanced up, forcing a smile that somehow felt twisted, my insides boiling with anticipation. Oh, same old, I replied, trying to sound casual, just the boring yet blissful routine, huh? She laughed as if her laugh could make the world a little lighter when in truth, it felt heavy in my lungs. I felt her gaze linger on me, perhaps sensing something within me had shifted, something dark and spinning, and then it happened. A letter arrived, or rather, stormed in like an intruder. Its envelope was stark white, contrasting the warm tones of our home, almost screaming to be opened. I could see her hesitate as she reached for it, the smile fading, replaced with an unnerving uncertainty. Amelia, can you help me with the mail? She called, and anxiety clutched at my heart like a vice. My instincts screamed to act, but my hands remained still. I watched curiously as she flipped the envelope in her hands, reading the name and the return address as if it was in a foreign language. What does it say? I finally managed, forcing a casual tone as I leaned against the kitchen counter, my heart barely keeping a steady beat. It's just an audit notice from the IRS, she said, a forced lightness in her voice. I'll be fine, I always am. But there was a tremor in her grip, barely perceptible but telling nonetheless. Mom, I began, but she cut me off, the bravado flooding back as she waved a hand dismissively. Please, I spend years taking care of everyone, they won't find anything. Won't even know who I am, she replied, but hope tinged with panic flickered behind her eyes as if she were speaking more to herself than to me. I wanted to stand tall and applaud as if an invisible audience around me could witness the downfall of her carefully constructed world. Are you sure about that? I poked gently, intrigued by the vulnerability creeping into her tone. Of course, now order me some food, she snapped, her composure shattering for just an instant. I will get through this. Just more paperwork from them, like I do not already have enough to manage with my clients. She huffed, her words laced with bitterness I had never heard before. I felt a sick thrill at her visible distress, but the satisfaction was short-lived. Every ounce of me simmered in anticipation as the days passed. The next letter arrived punctuated by a silence that draped over us like a heavy fog. Another audit letter this time, but nothing could shake the facade she wore. No longer did she dress in her usual finery. The expensive tastes were swapped with oversized sweatshirts and jeans, a costume meant to bury her anxieties beneath the fabric. I noticed how chatter at the dinner table turned into whispers, how the warmth of our family conversations drained from the air. Why are you ignoring my calls? I overheard her shout on the phone one night, frustration filling the room as I pretended to be busy in my own world. Tell them to stop with this nonsense. I have everything in order, they are making a mistake. It felt like standing on the edge of an abyss, watching a beautiful dream slip toward darkness. On another occasion, I found her pacing the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. She spoke in rapid tones, her voice rising and falling like the tide. I can't afford to lose my business, she said, her lips trembling slightly. I have invested so much. I can show you my earnings. Each shred of authority she wielded was unraveling under the weight of my carefully plotted evidence, and I forced myself to remain silent, to be the invisible omniscient. It was terrifyingly delightful. Sweetheart, can you come here for a second? She called one day, and I shifted uneasily, aware that my mother wanted something. I dragged myself to her side where she was sinking into the couch, letters strewn around like fallen leaves. Can you look over this for me? She asked, her eyes pleading for assistance. I felt a stir of emotion, compassion, or was it just a test? I picked up one of the letters, staring at her fine lines, tracing the harsh words within. It looks serious, I said, feigning innocence. It is, she groaned, throwing her hands in the air. Amelia, I made a mistake. I swear everything is fine. They are just confused. A few things are just unreported, nothing I can't fix. She paused, running her fingers through her hair, and I steadied myself every time I caught a whiff of her familiar perfume. Familiarity often drowned out the spike of betrayal that was battering me. Mom, you always said I should never cheat anyone for my own gain. I could feel the weight of the words hang in the air, heavy with meaning, biting into the moment, each syllable a dagger aimed at her chest. You don't understand, she replied, rising quickly, her cheeks flushed with anger. I did what I had to do for this family. And what about Dad's savings? I asked, letting everything lay bare like a card on the table. She paused, and for just one moment I saw her mask slip. Panic filled her eyes as if they were those glass marbles she used to warn me could break so easily. You don't know the whole story, she insisted, her voice shaking. I had to secure our future, Amelia. Our lives are at stake. My heart raced as I stepped closer, the thrill of revenge coursing through my veins. What lives? The lives built on deceit, built on your silence? And then I watched as her walls crumbled piece by piece until there she stood, vulnerable, frightened, completely exposed. I'm doing the best I can, she cried, those confident smiles replaced with despair, the reality of her situation dawning on her. The letters were no longer mere paper. They were symbols, lighthouses illuminating the darkness surrounding her, guiding her but also haunting me. The turmoil gripped my heart, tugging between satisfaction and an unbearable pang of guilt, but I inhaled deeply. But this isn't sustainable, Mom, you know that, I said softly, pushing her deeper into the truth she had long avoided. As I watched her, my satisfaction mixed with a sense of something new, something I could not quite place. Would watching her crash be enough? Would it quench the anger building within me or only birth more? It was too late now. The walls closing in on her were built of her own making, drawn tighter from my carefully crafted plans. A tragedy unfolding, and whether she acknowledged it or not, I was both the author and the audience, a harbinger of the fall of her grand structure built on lies. The collapse had begun, the stage was set, and now I waited. The satisfaction might just swallow me whole, the aftermath was surreal. As I stood in the grand foyer of our crumbling mansion, the polished marble floors that once gleamed with unapproachable opulence now felt like the remnants of some forgotten fairy tale, a castle where hope and happiness had long been banished. Ornate chandeliers, once sparkling with 100 prisms of light, now only seemed to cast shadows of despair over my mother, who sat curled on the couch, her perfectly coiffed hair falling apart like the delicate threads of her life. The air thick with silence, it felt as if time had momentarily halted, suspended in an unbearable tension that crackled like static electricity. Do you have any idea what this is going to do to me? She finally uttered, her voice tremulous, harmonizing with the disarray of a life meticulously curated but now unraveling. There was a touch of desperation in her eyes, a plea for comprehension, but I felt no urge to offer explanations or apologies. Instead, I simply watched, a newfound strength surging through me as she clutched her designer handbag closer to her chest as if it could shield her from the inevitable storm. I know exactly what this is going to do to you, I replied, my voice steady but laced with contempt, savoring the words as they tumbled from my lips with the weight of truth. This is just the beginning, Mom. You built your empire on lies, on manipulation, and on ignoring everyone else's pain while you basked in your luxuries. The daylight filtered through the large windows, illuminating the dust particles floating in the gloom, a peculiar metaphor, I thought to myself, for how the sparkle of our lives had been replaced by an unbearable stain of betrayal. A sinking feeling mixed with the taste of retribution in my throat. The financial empire she had built through questionable means was collapsing like a house of cards, and the news had spread like wildfire through the small town of Ashwood. My mother's name, revered and envied, had turned into a whispered curse, a symbol of greed. Do this, she pleaded, her hands trembling slightly as she wiped away a tear. You don't understand the world we live in. You don't know what I sacrificed to give you everything you've ever wanted. I let out a harsh laugh laced with disbelief. Sacrifice? You sacrificed me on the altar of your ambition. I was always an accessory to you, not a daughter. Just look at what you built. It was all for yourself. The realization of my own despair sunk in like a stone in a still pond, rippled in that moment were all the countless times I'd faded into the background while her name sparkled at the gala events we attended. You didn't even see me, I continued, the flame of emotion igniting within me. I was invisible, just a shadow trailing after the brilliant star you thought you were. The silence drowned out the sound of the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. It felt exaggerated in the tension. My heart pounded in my chest, a wild drum signaling my heart was alive for the first time in years. Watching her crumble invigorated me. Amelia, she started, her voice trembling as she tried to regain some semblance of authority, but I cut her off, refusing to let her manipulate me as she always had. I thought you would be happy, Mom. I thought tearing down your walls of self-importance would finally liberate you. I hoped you'd see how your choices blinded you to what really matters. Eyes flickered, wavering between rage and despair. You know nothing about being in my position. You don't know the pressures, the sacrifices I made to maintain a lifestyle you now want to destroy. The rage simmering within me rose again, boiling over. The pressures, the sacrifices, you meant the shopping sprees, the lavish vacations, and the parties where you could show off. That's not sacrifice. You sacrificed me for vanity. I settled back against the wall, crossing my arms, relishing my long-awaited liberation. The unsuspecting sound of sirens drifted in from outside, a reminder that the consequences of her actions were beginning to splay out like ink blots across the town. I reveled in the knowledge that she would soon be engulfed by the media storm that sought her downfall. Why couldn't you just be a mother? Why couldn't you see me? My voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability that simmered just beneath my defiance. I needed you, not the money or the fancy things, just you. The revelation hung in the air, heavy and profound. It was the deep-rooted truth that festered beneath the surface of my pain, a truth that I realized I now owned, no longer a ghost lost in her grand illusion. Amelia, please, she said, her voice barely a whisper, the fight falling away as the weight of my words bore down on her. I did what I thought was best. And what was best was never good enough for me, I shot back, walking towards the window, the sprawling landscape of our estate sprawled out like a lost treasure before me. The gardens, once vibrant and meticulously manicured, now wore the scars of neglect, mirroring the state of our family. Do you see it? Everything you had is fading. You could have been my biggest cheerleader, but instead you turned your back on me the moment I stopped being a prop. A whimper escaped her lips as she buried her face in her hands, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling with the weight of her failure. I felt a pang of something sadness maybe, but it was buried under the layers of empowerment that now enveloped me. I had emerged from her shadow, drawing strength from the anger and hurt that had fueled my reckoning. The door swung open, and my younger brother entered, his eyes wide with confusion. What's happening? He took in the scene, the extravagant living room, the shattered remnants of our family, our mother a picture of despair. Why are we like this? I turned to him, determination coursing through me, ready to guide him through the chaos that had engulfed our world. We're reclaiming our lives, little brother, I said, squaring my shoulders. We're finally learning who we really are without the phantoms of this place haunting us. Will we be all right? He asked, his voice small, the innocence in his eyes overshadowed by the turmoil around us. Yes, I assured him, my voice softening. We will be all right. The truth is hard, but we'll find a way to rise from it. We are not defined by this place or our mother's choices. We can forge our own path now. He stepped closer to me, the familiar bond rekindling under the ashes of devastation. I could feel the warmth of solidarity as I reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly, our new connection fortified by our shared struggle. We might lose what we had, he mused, glancing towards our mother, whose head was buried deep in her hands. But it feels like we're gaining something too. Exactly. I smiled, proud of the resilience blooming between us. This is our chance to start again, be who we want to be and not who she wanted us to be. I turned away from the window and looked at our mother, her trembling form reduced to a shell of her former self. I will not carry your choices anymore, Mom. You will face the consequences, and I will not stand by to witness your shame, but move forward with my life. This is my liberation. Her gaze lifted, and for a moment something flickered in her eyes, regret, shame, or perhaps an understanding of the storm she had created. But whatever it was, it would not sway me. My heart swelled with an undeniable sense of victory as I held my brother's hand tighter, our shared resolve unyielding and powerful. We will thrive even if the walls of this mansion come crashing down, I whispered, my voice echoing the hope blossoming within me. As the noise of sirens filled the air outside, seemingly calling for our family's reckoning, I stood there unafraid. Finally, I had taken the reins of my own life, the invisible daughter no more. The future lay before us, filled with endless possibilities, and I would embrace it with open arms. The power was in my hands, and it tasted sweet.